Thanks so much for joining us for the Equality Summit. I know this has been a crazy 2020 that you probably didn't think the sports season would go like this or anything, honestly. so,
Definitely.
so the first question I wanted to ask you was about the sports season being out of whack, obviously because of the coronavirus pandemic. But this is a conversation about sports and activism. So when it comes to this condensed season that you guys are playing, how do you honestly still make time for the activism work that you've been doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because I think we all had, intentions of coming to this bubble, of playing our season for a purpose, for a reason. We knew coming in what we wanted to do. And then I think all of us, and by all of us, I mean the players, when we got here, we realized how hard it is. We realized organizing is this like emotional energy that you expend. So then when you have to then be, your actual job, which is a basketball player, I think all of us kind of quickly had to learn how to juggle that because it is difficult. Like I said, I think it comes down to this emotional energy, and organizing is hard as it is. We all know that. And when it's about topics in our life that, for a lot of the players in the WNBA affect them directly, it can be taxing in this whole other way. So it's been tricky, but I think we have navigated it. We've had everyone kind of pull their weight in their way, and we figured it out.
Absolutely. So I wanted to kind of step back to that time in May after we all learned about George Floyd's killing, which obviously was, followed by news about Breonna Taylor, about Arbery. But can you walk me back to, it's late May, you hear the news. How did you react and how did you decide what to do next?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. I think watching those videos, for those that have, how do you not watch those videos and have like a visceral reaction, an emotional reaction? And it feels overwhelming because I think for a lot of people, myself included, you want to do something right away. It was so difficult to watch, and like I said, prompted such emotion. You want to act on it, you want to fix it, you want to find ways to, and I think that's a lot of people's normal reaction. And very quickly, we were already in negotiations ish to come to have this season. I was really lucky in that, the executive committee that I'm a part of with our players union, we just have a great group, and we were able to kind of discuss, ways in which we could actually have impact. And that for me personally was a huge help because I think, like I said, a lot of people, we want to do, whether it's get out and protest, which is obviously, one way where a lot of people were able to have an impact and create change. But for us as basketball players, with the platform that we had, we wanted to go that step further. So it took a second to kind of, I don't know, figure it out and find out how it was going to work. But that for me was just a wonderful way to kind of put all of that emotional energy I was having into action.
Absolutely. And something I wrote about a lot, being a reporter here at Bloomberg was, how brands responded, how people responded, how leaders in the country responded. One sticky issue that often happened was just like the genuineness behind responses and actions. And you've been lauded for being very genuine. So when you thought about what to do next, like, do you have, I guess, a conversation with yourself about like how do you show your genuineness, to make sure that it's not seen as just jumping into the moment, not saying the right thing?
Right, right. I mean, I don't know how to word this. I was going to say like lucky enough. That is not the right word. But I think as a WNBA player, we've had to face um, a lot, whether it's social injustice, as someone who is part of the LGBT community, just a lot of people, for lack of a better, attack us because of who we are. And so as a WNBA league, as a WNBA player, like I said, we've encountered this time and time again. And again, the right word is not lucky, but I think for me personally, just given I don't know, like the things that I've been a part of, the people I've tried to help through my career, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. I think now that this moment has arisen, it's just been natural, I think, for people to see me speak out about it. Now, that's a whole other conversation because obviously, as a person, as a human, I've had to come out of my shell more and more over the last couple of years, and that's kind of where my girlfriend Megan comes in. She's really helped me find my voice in a lot of ways, but also, bringing her up, I got to witness firsthand someone, who stood or actually knelt in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick and just really had a front row seat to what she experienced. I learned so much from that. And I think so the combination of kind of having my own little activism within the WNBA, speaking of 2016, that was a year where our entire league, basically stood up. Even before Colin knelt, we were speaking about these issues. But yeah, so the combination of like my own activism, seeing Megan go through what she did, I think now, hopefully it does come across genuine because it is. And in some ways, the proof's in the pudding, right? Like if you've been in this work, people know it.
Right. And I think right now, conventional wisdom is that the WNBA is very progressive on issues, especially when it comes to racial injustice in the US. And, your league will do something and it might not get as much attention, and like the NBA or male professional league will, and then that will take the spotlight. So I wanted to ask your opinion if that is a fair assessment. And if so, are we seeing a little bit more changes that women might actually get the credit that they've been due?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's kind of just the reality of our society. I think a lot of us in this country look to celebrity to hear their opinions, to see what they're doing, and a lot of our male counterparts have more celebrity. They're just more popular in that way. So when they do something, that platform's a little bit larger. I think what's so amazing about what the WNBA has done this summer is, our league is gay. We're obviously women, and we're gay and we're Black. That's like a large percentage of our league is some sort of makeup there. And who are these issues all affecting? Apparently, not apparently, sorry, especially right now, Black women. Yeah. And that is our league. That is literally who this league is. And so to stand up for yourself in that way, as a Black woman, as a Black basketball player, makes sense. For our league to, want to keep Breonna Taylor's name on the tip of everybody's tongue, that makes sense. Because a lot of times women get lost in these conversations. And that's something that I've learned throughout this summer. We've had, I can't even tell you, countless Zoom calls with, a wide range of people just speaking about how the women who die at the hands of police, the women who die in the custody of police, just it gets lost in all of this. And it's not to say that, someone like George Floyd doesn't need to be talked about. Of course he does. That's not what we're saying. But we also want to keep women at the forefront of this. And so for our league, it's natural. Again, sadly, it's a fit. And we're just going to keep talking about it. To your point, I think people are starting to take notice because the issues have aligned in a way. What's a hot topic, so to speak, for our country is who this league is.
Yeah, so when you're talking to your teammates, people in the league, it's like this Venn diagram, as you mentioned, Blackness, LGBTQ issues coming together. Like, how do you show up in that conversation? You're not Black, but you're LGBTQ. You want to make sure all sides are heard. Like, when you're having these conversations, what's kind of your approach if someone's talking about like how it affects a Black person specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I shut up and listen, to be honest. That's my approach. And I think there are times when you have to be just learning, and you have to hear the voices, and you have to listen, and you have to understand you don't know the experience. Simultaneously, in the ways that I can show up, this word, it's like I'm so hesitant to use it. I kind of have this ongoing joke with a friend too about it in the league, like the word ally. Everybody's using it now. It's almost like this like hot button word. But I can say, like, as as a gay person, when somebody straight, like sticks up for me, so to speak, it has weight. And so I think, but as we all know, the ally, it can't be a noun, it has to be a verb. That's like the distinction with when people use that word. So for me to be an ally, like it has to be the verb, but I also know like, oh, as a white person, it has weight to, for lack of a better, stick up for, my Black counterpart, my teammate or whoever. But I can't really do that if I don't listen. I can't really be there for them in the ways, that maybe a teammate does, or like I said, a counterpart in our executive committee, whatever the case may be. I can't do that if I'm not listening and I'm not learning. I'm not understanding to the extent that I can.
Has there been like a good book or article or some type of content that you've recently consumed this summer that like speaks to the Black experience or like just was eye-opening about these issues?
Honestly, like, no, there's not. I'm surrounded by like amazing women, amazing Black women, and so we just talk. Literally, I mean,
Yeah.
so we're in this bubble. So it's just 12 WNBA teams, and it's, you can't leave. You can order Uber Eats, and that's about that's about it. That's the most exciting thing. But we do have a pool. And there's just been so many days where we have downtime, and whether it's my team, like my Seattle team, or other players from other teams, and we're just hanging out. And we've had some amazing conversations. And these are real life conversations, whether it's someone kind of opening up and sharing about maybe a time where they had a negative experience with the police, or just, conversations kind of like, shooting the whatever, but serious topics come up. And it's been for me, as a basketball player, I've been around Black women like my whole life, truthfully. And so I've actually taken for granted knowing some of what I know. But in that way, like, yeah, it's actually been interesting for me, like to hear other white people like not understand certain things. And I'm like, how do you not, you know what I mean? Like, how do you not know any of these things? So that's been a learning process, but it's also continued in other ways just to hear their experiences. So that's been like my best book, my best podcast, my best everything. It's like real people.
I love that happening in the wubble.
Yeah, it is happening in the world.
Yeah. So I recently relocated to Atlanta, and so I'm doing some research, obviously trying to root for the sports teams here. So with the Atlanta Dream in the recent game, when they wore the Vote Warnock shirts,
Yeah.
I was reading some articles. I know that that was attributed to you, that idea. So the fact that the players wanted to, wear things on their uniforms related to Black Lives Matter or say her name, but got pushed back from the co-owner. And so Warnock, who is running against her for the Senate seat, you guys all like wore these shirts. So can you tell me a bit about, the power that you see in symbols in terms of like wearing things on the uniform and then also pivoting the message about voting? We're in 2020, the election's a few weeks away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you said it. So voting has always been something that our league has gotten behind. A couple years ago, I actually think we teamed up maybe 4 years ago with Rock the Vote. So it's very natural for our league to talk about voting. In today's climate, of course, it's what needs to be talked about, and so we're just continuing to do that. And it was a really unique experience having a co-owner tell our league not to support, or not to, it's not even about support, not to say that Black Lives Matter. It was tricky, it was tough, it was hard. But it all kind of clicked together where we're like, wait a minute, like we don't really have a say in whether she's an owner or not. As a player, you don't really have, that's like not part of your job description. But as a citizen of this country, I can do my research. And that's really what I did. I just got, on the internet, and I started looking up things about the Senate race, starting to understand things. We're really fortunate to have Stacey Abrams as one of our advisors to our union, and just listening to her speak, obviously what happened to her in the governor race, and just hearing about voter suppression and all these different things. But then also knowing that she had endorsed Reverend Warnock. And then our former president of the WNBA, Lisa Borders, had endorsed and actually works with Reverend Warnock, knows him well. And it just seemed like all the pieces and we're like, wow, we got on some Zoom calls, because I think as a voter, you need to do your research. It's one thing to be like, get out there and vote, but you want to have an educated vote. You want to be knowledgeable about it. So for us, we were checking all those boxes, and it was a perfect fit. He aligned. All of his values were our values. And it was like, wow, this is someone that we should support. So believe me, I know that if he gets in the Senate, it means that she isn't in the Senate. But more than anything, it's a wonderful candidate for us to support. And that's kind of how it all came about.
Absolutely. And then, so when it comes to, you have this leadership position in the league, you're a longtime player for the Seattle Storm. You're very, powerful in the industry that you're in. But as you look forward, do you want to pivot some of that, power into other industries, talking to other corporations? How are you kind of looking ahead?
Man, truthfully, This Wubble experience has been amazing. It's been rewarding in some ways. It's also been exhausting, and
Mm.
it's funny because, like anything in the world of activism, it's hard to see. It's hard to see the work. It's hard to see like the payoff of it, right? Like you hope you're having an impact. You want to have an impact. People tell you are, but it's not tangible. So it can kind of bog you down. So the way I feel now is I need to like recharge, and kind of figure out what I want to do next. But one thing I do know for sure is, again, my girlfriend Megan and I, we did this IG live show over quarantine, and it was like for fun. We were drinking on it, having a good time, whatever. But now we are going to try to pivot it and still have fun guests, but always have like a bent towards something, right? Like something involving social justice, keeping women's names on the tips of people's tongues, whether it's, I mean, I don't want it to be someone like Breonna Taylor, to be honest. I hope that stops happening. But we definitely want to talk about Black-owned business, especially women. And we just want to keep these things, again, like on people's minds, because it's so easy to, I don't know, for people to go back to their regular life, if you will. And I know for myself, we don't want that to happen. So we could potentially use what was an IG live show and turn it into something a little bit more.
Right, because I did want to ask you, like, Black Lives Matter has been around since 2013, and it's ebbed and flowed over the years in terms of like the public consciousness. This is definitely a moment where everyone's thinking about it. So, are there other ways that you're trying to think of making sure that it stays in this national conversation?
Yeah, honestly, I do think that this show that we've done before could be a great way. Again, like I said, like having segments where we only talk about, Black-owned business, having segments where it's maybe like, like a dope ass person of color of the month, or, something like that. Like just to
Yeah.
continue to talk about these things, and keep them, like you said, in the national conversation. And then, like I said, that's just kind of what's happening right now. Um, I think that as a league, we're going to continue to do more. And there's always, power in numbers with that, which has also been what's so nice about being here all together in the same place. You kind of have like this, I don't know, cushion, I guess, or just this like support system where we all get to kind of bounce ideas and support each other. But I know for a fact our Social Justice Council with the WNBA is going to continue to do more and more. And I definitely want to be a part of that.
Absolutely. And I know oftentimes in conversations about activism, we're talking about some of the worst things that can happen to the Black community, being killed, being profiled, all of those things. And I definitely want to create the space in this conversation for you to say, like, what are you most inspired about, like, by your, Black friends, your Black colleagues, just the movement in general? Like, what inspires you to keep going?
Yeah, you know what I think it is? In listening to some of my teammates, especially, and just hearing their experiences, as a Black person, as a person of color in this country, and what they've had to endure and kind of what they've had to put up with. And I know in these moments, right, when you see, you know, vicious killings in these videos, George Floyd being one, you hear about stories of Breonna Taylor. I know that it brings up, right? Like it's reliving their own trauma. It brings up this trauma. So what I find so inspiring is that Black people, again, especially the women on my team, the things they've had to endure, and they just continue to push. They continue to overcome. They deal with that trauma and they continue to move forward. And it's just like, I mean, a lot of times you hear how people, you hear of conversations where maybe a white person says to a Black person, like, oh, like, well, what can I do? Or, hey, what can, no, it's like, I feel like Black people have endured so much, like it's our turn, and that's kind of how I feel. And I feel like that really, just listening to their stories truly inspires me.